gift shop at this Wakulla Springs State Park where the manatees are. We're going to go on a little manatee boat ride. We've never been to this springs with the manatees. There's a manatee there. They're kind of fun to watch them. Usually the waters are like crystal clear. And then and here they have an old counter, lunch counter. It's an old lodge here. Pretty neat. $5,000 reward for whoever murdered old Joe in 1966. Well, they had him stuffed and put him in a glass case. Old Joe was a friendly croc. Yeah, the creature of the Black Lagoon is playing here. And it has posters around here. I wonder if it was filmed in here. Kind of makes sense. Might have to watch that movie. Yeah, beautiful old lodge here. The ceiling here is like all kinds of tiled up wood, and you got the little round couch you sit on. Looks like I Dream of Jeannie. And here they have kind of a fancier dining room that you can go in and have lunch. About $6 to park here, and they give you $6 off if you want your meal. So pretty cool. Very neat. There's some heavy-duty chairs there. Nothing from the gift shop?
No, I'll probably come back and get a postcard, that's it.
Okay.
No, I don't pay $35.
Oh, 1937. Okay, I was looking for the date. Yeah, the ceiling's all hand-painted in 1937.
Really?
Yeah. That is a lot of work up there. What do you think?
Well, I think it's really
You
beautiful.
want to stay here sometime?
No, thank you.
Well, here we're going down to Wakulla Springs there. You can see the boat coming in. We got the next boat at 2.
You know, there's pine cones on the ground, but I don't see any.
Pine trees?
Maybe they aren't pine cones. What are they?
Yeah, it is kind of different.
The seeds kind of flat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a guy told me at a gas station about this place. I didn't even know about it. But he said, you got to see that while you're here. So he was a local guy. So we said, okay. It was like 20 miles away, so we're going to check it out.
There's a picture of a zeppelin flying over
185 feet deep. There's a cave down there.
It's a neat history here.
Yeah, there is. Now, I see they got the movie up there playing the Black Lagoon.
They filmed that here.
Oh, that's what they. Okay, I was wondering that.
Yeah, if you go in the corner here, you'll see all the movies filmed.
Oh, okay. Well, check that out.
And they filmed down at Silver Springs. Yeah. Sounds different though.
The creature of the Black Lagoon. Boat
So
tour.
you're the celebrity then? So you're the celebrity?
I guess so.
I see that.
I'm something.
I saw that thing and I thought, oh, River of the Crying Bird, that's such a cool title. And I'm like,
That's what Wakulla means.
really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. You come in here for 30 years?
What did you find?
I saw the Black Lagoon guy.
Oh, you did?
He's around the corner.
Okay.
With his hands like this.
Okay.
He was about 2.
There's the creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yeah?
He wasn't really that ugly. He just kind of had a skin problem. So that whole movie was done right here, and they still have some of the rocks out here, I guess.
Down here.
Hey.
Yeah.
You want to get a
They
picture
were
with
in a
the?
lot of cop
I'll give a
shows.
picture of the with the Black Lagoon.
Blackie.
That's me and going to college at Rice.
Well, there's the boat of the Black Lagoon. Oh, the water is clear. Look at that.
It is over there, though. Here's
Oh yeah, but you can see it right there. You can see all the way to the bottom of the sand there.
Oh, that is the bottom, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's just because it's kind of slow collecting weeds there.
Or say that I went over.
You need a Dramamine?
Huh? I know. Maybe I
Getting
do
out
need
of
a Dramamine.
Boarding the ship.
The bigger the boat gets, the steeper the ram gets. The arm is good. There you go. There you go. I know the ram gets a little steeper as the boat gets full.
All right.
You're okay?
That's fine, yeah.
You want to go on the outside?
Yeah, that'd be good so I can get some.
Don't make me turn this boat around.
Captain Bly.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Wakulla Springs. My name's Captain Phil. I'll be taking you down the river today. And my boss is going to ride with me today, so I have to behave myself. Actually, Captain Katrina is our newest ranger, and she's coming out on the boat tours to steal all of our jokes. So it's fun. Has anybody been on these boat tours before?
No.
Oh, most of you.
No.
All right, we're going to go have lunch at the lodge. Just bring the boat down.
Got it.
No, we know where all the cool stuff's hiding out. Real quick before we go down the river, I just got a couple of safety items I need to talk about on the boat. This is a full boat. So I'm going to have to ask everybody to try to remain seated during the course of the boat. It is a pontoon boat, and if I happen to point out a piece of wildlife on one side or the other and everybody goes to that side to see it, the boat's going to list about 25 degrees. It makes it tough to drive. But if there's a couple places where I can give you an opportunity to stand up where you're seated, you can take some photographs and things. You will notice we have life preservers on board. We haven't had to use them in 60 years, so hopefully we'll keep our track record intact today and everybody will stay on board. If you've been here before, you know how shallow the river is, so if you do fall out of the boat, just put your feet down and stand up. I'll swing the boat around, pick you up, we'll continue down the river with the rest of the boat. In the back where I drive from, there's a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. Again, we've never had to use them. Park Service just says I have to let you know that they're there. So I've done my duty. We're going to go ahead and announce our departure and head down the river.
He's going up here too.
Captain Phil and
Fire
Captain Katrina going down on the manatee with 30 brave souls.
Brave souls. That's
Yeah, he does have the jokes in him.
If I'm in your way, tell me to move. Just watch your elbows, guys. We got a pole on the sides that we don't want anybody bumped. Once we're out of the dock area.
All right, can everybody hear me okay up front?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Dock. If you look through the dock, you'll see at the other end of our beach down there, that two-story tower that those folks are standing on. 125 feet below that, underwater, is where the cave opening is located that lets all this water out of the ground to create this river. Wakulla Springs is the largest and deepest freshwater spring in the world. So this river we're getting ready to go down on right now is completely sourced by spring water. There's no other rivers or streams that come into the Wakulla River. It's all what comes out of that spring opening on an hourly basis. So it is a pretty amazing body of water we have here in North Florida. That this river, which is about 100 yards wide and has a 3 to 4 mile an hour current, is completely sourced by spring water. Now, even though we haven't had too much rain lately, the spring is still pushing out about 500,000 gallons of water a minute. And a lot of times people have kind of a hard time visualizing how much water that is. But if you've ever seen an Olympic-sized swimming pool, our spring here can actually fill an Olympic-sized pool every 45 seconds. So it's a lot of water coming out of that spring opening, creating this beautiful river and all the great wildlife that it supports. And you picked a great time of the year to come here. We're kind of in a little bit of a shoulder month here. It's not quite spring yet, even though it feels like it today. But the weather's warm, and the water that comes out of the spring is 69 degrees year-round. It never changes because it's such a gigantic aquifer that drains out here.
You could swim back
So
there
that
too.
69-degree water actually affects a couple of different types of animal life that we have on the river here that are cold-blooded, and that would be our turtles and our alligators. So on a day like today, when the air is as warm as it is, it's going to push a lot of turtles and a lot of gators out of the water and up on shore. So we're definitely going to see a good bunch of those as we go down during the course of the river. The nice thing too is that we still have a period of the year when we have some of our migratory birds are in the park. As a matter of fact, if you look to the left over there, you'll see some of those duck-like birds with the black and white hood of feathers on their head. Those are hooded mergansers. They came in here around Halloween and they spend the whole winter here. And they'll basically be here probably until the middle to the end of March, and then they go back up north again. But it is nice. We've got 2 or 3 varieties of migratory birds, as well as all the ones that live here year round. So that's why it is a nice time of the year to be here. Also on the left over there, you see a couple of fallen trees have some massive turtles on there.
Big one.
Those are called Swanee cooters. They're the largest turtles that we have in the river here. And cooter is actually the species name of the turtle, but we call them Swanee cooters because a lot of them migrate here from the Swanee River, which is about 80 miles east of here. These turtles live here year round though. A couple other migratory birds we have around the right here, these little blackbirds with the snow white beak.
There's a little
Those are called
green in
American coots.
the-
And they came in about the same time as the mergansers did. And you'll be very happy to know that we have nothing but young coots here at the park. We have no old coots here at Wakulla Springs, except myself.
I'm here.
I qualify as a resident old coot here at the park. But, you know, I wait all summer for those birds to come in the fall, because I can't use that joke in the summertime. It's only good in the winter when they're actually here. We got right here on the right, we got a beautiful female anhinga. It's one of 2 diving birds that we have at the park here. The other ones would be our double-crested cormorants. So what anhingas and cormorants do is they swim in the water, and then they take a deep breath, and they go all the way down to the bottom of the river in that eelgrass down there, looking for things to eat, little fish, crayfish, and other various things. But they get completely waterlogged when they're underwater like that. And so that's why you'll see a lot of them sitting up on trees with their wings spread out. They use the breeze and a little bit of sunlight to kind of dry their feathers off. And both the cormorants and the anhingas, they have massive wet feet, so they can pretty much outswim the majority of the fish that are underwater. So they're really good at what they do when it comes to catching fish and things under the water. Or they'll come up with a crayfish in their beak. Actually, here's another anhinga coming up on the right. She's got her wings all spread out. She must have been in the water fairly recently. But she's using that breeze and the warm air to kind of dry her feathers out. And for a bird with web feet, they can hold on to these branches pretty well. It's amazing how good they can wrap their feet around these branches, even with those web feet that they have. But she uses that long pointy bill to actually spear fish underwater. It's pretty amazing. See them come out of the bottom of the river with a 6 or 7 inch fish stuck with their bill right through the middle of it.
It's a juvenile gator in the water.
Oh, our first gator of the day. We got a little guy here in the water on the right hand side. Probably about a 5-footer.
He's about this guy big.
You should see some that are going to be much, much larger than that though. The gators are a little confused today. The water temperature and the air temperature are almost identical. And so they don't know whether they want to be out of the water or in the water. Usually on a day like today, if the sun breaks through, they'll use that sun to kind of... Oh, we got a bald eagle coming right at us, right in the front of the boat.
Osprey.
Oh, it is an osprey? I'm sorry, I caught just a corner of it.
So we've got a nesting pair up here. They're actually rebuilding their nest right now. So on the last tour, he went and grabbed some of the Spanish moss off a tree right in front of our boat and swooped back around and brought it to the nest. So you'll be able to see them.
Yeah, they're
Just look at them
rebuilding that nest now that you started last week.
Yeah, but both of them are sitting up on the nest right now.
This is the 5th year in a row now that the ospreys have come back to that same tree. So for the last 4 years, that female has she's had a successful hatch, and she's added 4 more juvenile ospreys to our population here at the park.
Yeah, there's the nest.
Unfortunately, every winter we have a massive flock of black and turkey vultures that hang out here. And vultures are kind of like the juvenile delinquents of the bird world. They go up into that tree every year and they totally dismantle that, that poor nest up there, so the ospreys have to rebuild it every spring.
Oh, that's why. Okay, that's why I had to.
They were being very talkative earlier. We said they were probably having a dispute over decorating.
I remember 5 years ago when they first started building that nest, and they just finished it, and a pair of bald eagles came into the park, and they thought they were going to steal that nest away from the ospreys. And ospreys were only about 1/3 of the size of the eagles.
Yeah.
But they fought them off for about 4 to 6 weeks, and finally the eagles got sick and tired of dealing with them. They flew off somewhere else and made their own nest. So they are pretty territorial when it comes to protecting their nest. Wakulla Springs has about 6,000 acres here inside the park, and about 5,000 acres of it is actually virgin timber. We have some beautiful trees here in the park. But probably the most interesting trees are the ones that are growing out here in the middle of the river.
Yeah.
These are called bald cypress trees.
Oh,
And if you see them in the summertime, they actually have needles on them. They look like pine trees, but they're not
that's where you get the
evergreens. They're
pine
actually
cones.
deciduous. They lose their needles every fall. And so this time of the year is when they truly are bald cypress. They don't have any needles. They're basically covered with, for the most part, they're covered with Spanish moss. But it won't be too long. Usually by the end of February, early March, we start getting, some of the green starts showing back up on the cypress trees again. But you'll notice around the base of most of those cypress trees, all those little stumps that are coming up around the base of the tree. And those are known as cypress knees, which are actually an extension of the root system of the tree. Well, it has two purposes for the tree. It gives it another source of oxygen because of the fact that they are growing in the water, but more importantly, it really stabilizes the base of the tree. Very seldom will you ever see.
You guys aren't allowed to be back here? Yeah, you're not allowed to be back here. Please head back
Colin,
up.
can you let somebody know that we've got people down standing out of the barge at the waist, please?
Oh. We got a couple of rebels.
Of course.
Copy that. That way.
Yeah, that won't last long. Yeah, this is actually that area that they were just standing at. That's the only human development you'll see on this whole stretch of river. That was put in back in the 1950s by Ed Ball to maintain our boats. That's our boat yard, and it's also part of our sanctuary. So it's actually closed to the public. So yeah, we get pretty alarmed as park rangers when we see people standing out there on that barge.
Especially since Colin got scared by an alligator stepping out on that last week.
I know.
So for their safety, they don't want to.
That's all right. I sicked one of my fellow rangers on him. That'll the day's not going to end well for them.
Yeah, you could say, oh, you brought us some food.
No, they'll just ask them to stay in their part of the park.
Yeah, they're pretty nice.
I actually thought it was Santa Claus standing out there for a minute.
There's a lot of red on
The
you.
red suit standing out on my barge. You see a lot of these white birds here on the right side of the boat with the long orange beak. It's called an American white ibis. And we do have some that spend the whole summer here, but the majority of them come in here in the winter time, and they don't have web feet, so they're kind of stuck on the edge of the river like that. They use that long beak to poke around for snails and crustaceans. They'll eat crayfish and things like that off the side. But we did have probably a flock of about 200 that were here for the winter, and now they're starting to thin out. I think they're
Look at that.
kind of getting faked out by this warm weather. They're going to fly somewhere where they think they're going to be done with the winter, but winter's still kind of cranking along up there in the Mid-Atlantic, so they're going to be pretty disappointed when they get up there.
That is so neat how they do
We got an
that.
ibis here, and the female anhinga. The females are the ones that have kind of the blonde neck and shoulders.
Oh, they're
Elevated window that sits up there by the tree line. And we affectionately call it the Marine Bend when it comes to naming parts of the park. But many years ago, we thought that was probably a village site for some of the Native American tribes here, because it's about 12 feet above sea level, the highest point in the park on the river.
12 feet.
So we sent a group of archaeologists in there, and they dug some test pits, and they ended up finding hundreds of artifacts up in
Wow.
that meadow.
That's neat.
Stone tools, pottery shards,
Wow.
and they carbon dated them back about 15,000 years.
Wow.
So I'll give you an idea. We've had Native American tribes living on this river as far back as 15,000 years ago. And a lot of what we see today is identical to what they saw on this river thousands of years ago. This river has not changed at all in all those thousands of years. So it's a very ancient.
All that
historic
water's been
river.
coming in here all them years. Yeah. Nice fresh water. You could probably drink that water.
Many years ago,
Clear.
we had a ranger that worked here. He was here for 38 years. We called him the mayor of Wakulla Springs, and we learned a lot from him as far as teaching us a lot of the ways of the old-time boat drivers out here on the river. And one of his favorite things to do was in this section of the river here, he would just kind of put the boat in neutral and shut the engine off and just kind of float down the river for a couple of minutes, and gives us an opportunity to just kind of let the river speak to us a little bit. So we're going to enjoy a couple of minutes of peace and quiet down here on this part of the river. If your captain will ever be quiet, and and then we'll see if the river speaks to us. Listen to some bird life. Nobody's driving the boat.
I'm real worried.
We've been looking for manatees. When it gets warm like this, the manatees tend to go out to the Gulf. And so we kind of look around and see if we can keep an eye out for them, but they've been pretty spotty the last couple of weeks. No.
Is it bad?
That's okay.
Oh yeah, it's neat.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
just like
beautiful.
it is.
Very calm.
See, I can get away with this because I'm just a volunteer here. I actually retired last year. This is such a cool job. I come back and do it for free. But I don't have to abide by the state of Florida rules anymore. Please don't report me, Katrina.
What's the white flower?
Spider lilies. There's quite a few of them on the other side of the river.
Well, thank you for indulging me on that little bit. That's always my favorite part of the boat tour, when we get to do that little peaceful float down the river.
That don't sound good.
Now, I'm going to be aiming for this channel over here on the left-hand side. And as I get ready to pull in there, take a moment to look to your right and look downriver. We still have 2 more miles of river inside the park boundaries that we don't get to go down into. That's our sanctuary down there. And 2 times a year, once in the winter and once in the summer, our park biologist goes down there with a canoe and a couple of rangers. And she goes down there to do a wildlife survey. And those are the only 2 days a year that humans are allowed on that 2-mile section of river. So what you're basically looking at down there is the last 2 miles of completely untouched river in this part of the state of Florida. And we're lucky enough to have it here at Wakulla Springs. So in the springtime, we get thousands of birds that go down into that 2-mile stretch of river, and they make their nest and raise their chicks down there. So it is a very important section of river, and we take the conservation of that stretch of river pretty seriously. We don't get to go down there as park staff, and we don't allow the public to come up into that 2-mile section. And the way that we're able to do that is back in the 1930s, when Ed Ball owned this as a private landowner, he actually put an 8-foot chain link fence across the river at his boundary line.
Wow.
And about a year later, the Florida government found out about it, and they were not happy with him, and they took him to court, and they battled for over a year to get him to take that fence down. And his argument was that he owned the 6,000 acres on both sides of the river, and he wanted it to be a wildlife sanctuary. So finally, the Florida government let him have his way. And to this day, 90 years later, that fence is still across the river down there. So it sits right on top of the water. It allows all the wildlife to swim underneath it. But it doesn't let the fishing boats and the pontoon boats and the jet skis come up into that section of river. Now, this just goes to prove that this boat is not on rails. I am driving. I'm driving it not very well, but I didn't take the corner tight enough, so let me back up and regroup.
Just like our motorhome sometimes.
Look at those little birds.
There we go.
Oh, cute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, when you come up here, you'll see it.
The little bird.
Yeah, it's a little teeny bird with a red beak. He should be there.
It's a moorhen.
Oh yeah, I've seen them down there. Little teeny thing,
All
yeah.
those swamp chickens.
Swamp chicken? Is that what they are?
Common moorhen too.
Oh.
He does cute little beak.
So these little tiny turtles that you see sitting out here on these logs, these are called yellow belly sliders. They're a completely different species than the ones that we saw at the top of the river there. And even the turtles are a little confused today with the breeze. It's kind of cool. They're not sure if they want to be out of the water or in the water. But when we do these river tours in the wintertime, sometimes the air temperature is 35, 40 degrees. It's about 30 degrees colder than the water. And we'll actually get steam that rises off the river because of that temperature differential.
There
It
they
is
are.
pretty amazing to come out
Making
here and
noise
see all
now.
the steam rising off the top of the river.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Got a beautiful
Yes.
little bird on the left-hand side here.
Look at him.
A little
He's-
blue heron, probably one of the prettiest birds we have
Oh,
here.
he's pretty. Look
And
at
we
him.
got one of our big mom gators that's hanging out here on the left as well.
Oh, there's the gator, yeah. I
She's
see.
big. Well, not as big as some of them.
Yeah, right there is the gator.
I'm assuming that's a female because we have 5 or 6 females that nest in this channel every year.
There's another one behind it.
Even when they're not really nesting, they will tend to hang out in the area
Yeah.
where they're going to make their nest.
There's
Usually
that
breeding
gator.
season for the gator starts around February and March. And yes, that is a real alligator. It's,
Yeah, they say so
all
still.
the cool school kids we bring out here, takes us half the boat tour to convince them that these are real alligators. They think they're little plastic props that we put on the side of the river.
Where's the loud one? Oh, this guy.
Real alligators.
Oh, he's loud right here.
The little red ones are
Little like duck-like thing.
Noisy birds are called common moorhens. And it's getting to be.
Yeah, these things are noisy.
So now the males are starting to get really vocal about talking to each other. And then on the right, we've got the second largest bird in the park. That big white bird is a great white egret. Or the queen lady of the river. Those birds were actually almost hunted to extinction back in the 1930s. Those birds have two feathers, one on each wing, that are very lacy, and they used to be hunted back in the 30s just for those two feathers. They used to use them in ladies' hats.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
And they hunted them almost to extinction. Finally, in the 50s, they went on the endangered species list, and their numbers have rebounded substantially. There's a good population of them now. They've been removed off the endangered species list.
You got your fancy hat now. Maybe you should put a feather on it.
But I'm hoping we're going to see some more of our
Oh, gator over there.
There's one over here on the right.
Oh yeah.
Once I pass this tree,
See his eyeballs
you'll
sticking
see her
up.
laying in the water there.
Can't see it from here very well.
And the water's kind of dark. The easiest way to tell how big a gator is like that is look at the end of its snout where its nostrils are.
Look at this
And if
guy
you
here.
estimate how many inches it is from the end of their snout back to their eyes, and then you multiply every inch by a foot, that'll tell you how big they are.
Huh.
She looks like about 7 inches from the end of her nose back to her eyes, and that equals about a 7-foot gator. Pretty accurate way to tell how big they are, even if they're completely underwater like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know, he's just sitting there
That's also the
posing
reason they
for
don't
us.
have alligators up in Canada, because they still use the metric system up there. They have no way to measure them. It only works down here in the United States.
I'm Canadian.
Oh, I can get away with that. Both my parents are French Canadian. I can throw my countrymen under the bus.
Yeah, we should have went to the matrix since back in the 60s.
A couple more white ibis hanging out here on the left-hand side. Most of these birds, when they're feeding in the weeds like that, you think that they're just kind of aimlessly feeding themselves, but trust me, they're keeping an eye out for gators. They know how many gators are hanging out in these weeds. There's a nice little batch of spider lilies over there.
Look at those
They just started
lilies.
blooming about a week ago. And each one of those is an individual flower. They're about 6 to 7 inches in diameter. They're called spider lilies.
Nice little juvenile posted up for you right here.
Juvenile gator. How come they're always on
Ready
that?
for his picture.
There's a little gator kind of sitting on top of this pack of mud here.
Wish I could
About a
stand up.
3-footer. When gators are small like that, they grow about a foot a year until they get to be about 5 feet long, and then their growth rate slows down quite a bit. Kind of dictated then by how much food that they can get on an annual basis. Kind of dictates how fast they grow.
And there's 3 decent sized ones.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of gators laying over here on this island.
Oh yeah, there's one there. See him over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of on the far side
Probably
of
a
this.
couple of our females.
little
They
island
like
there.
to nest on that island. That way there, when the eggs start to hatch, it keeps the raccoons and the possums from sneaking out there and eating the babies out of the nest. A lot of our females like to nest on that island out there.
Yeah, the big one over there.
Wow.
So what they'll do is they'll push,
Another one looking at us in the water.
the females will push a bunch of that vegetation together into a big pile, and then they dig a hole in the middle and lay their eggs. About 40 to 60 eggs is the average. And then they cover it up, and then what happens is all that vegetation starts to break down, and it creates its own heat like the inside of a compost pile. And that's the heat that incubates the alligator eggs. So now if you get a lot of hot days and the inside temperature of that alligator nest gets to be 94 degrees or higher, all the baby gators will come out as males. And if it doesn't reach 94 degrees, they all come out as females. You'll never get a nest of mixed-sex gators. They're either going to be all males or all females based on that 94-degree temperature inside the nest.
Well, there's a fact I never knew.
So the poor mother, she just protects the nest for 60 days while the eggs are incubating and they start to hatch, and she doesn't know if she's going to get a nest full of well-behaved females or a bunch of belligerent little male gators. Yeah, she never knows until they hatch.
He's getting ready to
There's a
take
male
off.
henga on the left there. He's got his wings all spread out.
Drying them out.
Very relaxing.
Now that the weather's starting to warm up, we're getting a little bit of vegetation that's starting to come back and rejuvenate a little bit on the shoreline. You'll see some of these plants, they have the arrowhead-shaped leaves on them. And it's called pickerel weed. And it was a pretty important food source for the Native Americans here thousands
Really?
of years ago. If you pull those
Edible.
plants out of the water, they actually have little tubers underneath, look a lot like potatoes.
Really?
And that's the way the Native Americans used to treat it back then. They would boil them up, or they'd mash them into a paste and make a flatbread out of them.
Really?
And because they grow in the water like that, they regenerate pretty quickly. So there never really was a problem with over harvesting them.
What plant is that again, please?
What's that?
Which plant was that?
Oh, the ones that here that have the arrowhead-shaped leaves. You'll see the little leaves sticking out of the water, and the leaves look like arrowheads. There's a whole bunch of them right here, right to my right.
I thought it was some kind
It's
of
called
lily or
pickerel
something.
weed.
Pickerel. Oh, it looks like they got rid of those guys.
So I don't know if it's still running around, but
Now, the gators that we see on the edge of the river, people think that alligators are really aggressive and the way they hunt, but actually alligators are notoriously lazy. And when they find a sunspot on the side of the river, they're happy to just lay there. They're actually what we refer to as ambush predators. So they don't chase their food.
Wait
They'll
for it
lay
to
in
come
the
down.
weeds on the edge of the river. And they'll wait for their lunch to come down and step on them. It could be a raccoon or a possum, or maybe we've even seen big males drag a white-tailed deer into the river.
Wow.
But they go after turtles. They eat fish. Any of these birds, they get a little bit too close. Rangers in uniform, they're not all that particular about what they eat. But they really don't want to burn up any energy looking for food. They would rather just sit in the weeds and wait for their food to come to them. Especially in the winter time, because they're cold-blooded, their metabolism gets very, very low. And they only eat about every 4 to 6 weeks in the winter.
Wow.
But now that things are warming up a little bit, they're starting to get a little bit more active. Breeding season's going to be just around the corner.
Pretty neat, isn't it?
There's a really good example on the right of a cypress tree with all those knees around the base of it.
I've seen those, yeah.
Many years ago, people used to come out and they used to cut those cypress knees off and they'd make bookends out of them or make all kinds of things that they could sell as arts and crafts. But now in Florida, it's against the law to harvest the cypress knees.
Cypress
It's,
knees.
it's not, first of all, it's not good for the tree when you're harvesting all those roots off the bottom of the tree. And it does really eliminate a lot of their stability as well. So now it is against the law to harvest cypress knees.
juvenile posted up on the street.
Little,
And a little blue heron right
Got a little
behind
baby
it.
gator
Little
there on the
alligator
right
there.
inside.
Another
There's
bigger
mom up
female
here in the water. She makes a.
Just a little tiny.
Actually, I'm gonna slow down. I'm gonna go past this gator on the right, and then when I get past that little cypress tree, look at the flat muddy spot at the base of that tree. You can see a couple little tiny gators laying up there. Those are her gators from last year.
On the dirt right behind that tree.
Actually, no, those might be 2 years old, but they're about 24 inches.
cool.
There's 2 of her babies are sitting up there in the mud. And they don't usually go too far from their mother for their first couple of years. Female gators are very, very protective when it comes to their young. They'll actually fight to the death. If another big male gator comes down here, tries to ransack the nest, females will go head to head with a male gator twice their size to protect their young. The funny thing is, though, that's all they do. They do absolutely nothing to feed them. Gators come out of the egg. They're about 5-6 inches long. From day one, they have to go into the water and find their own food. The mother will go off, she'll get something to eat, and she won't bring any scraps back to the nest. She forces the babies right from day one to get in the water and go find their own food. Yet somehow they've made it work. They've been around for over 1 million years.
Yeah, they're
Kind of our closest
prehistoric.
version of a dinosaur out here on the river.
Yeah.
Another big one.
Yeah, we got another big gator laying up here in the mud on the right.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Great egret back there. fishing.
On the days when we get the
Big
sun
gator.
comes out, it's pretty bright sunny. We'll get about 2 or 3
He's a big
dozen
one.
gators sometimes that'll lay up in this little muddy patch. And during this time of the year, it's not really breeding season. They're kind of tolerant of laying next to each other. But once it starts getting to be the breeding season, you'll never see male gators lay that close to each other. They're pretty territorial. But I've seen sometimes 20 or 30 gators all laying out in this little muddy patch here. Kind of looks like spring break over in Panama City Beach with all these people, all these gators laying out there soaking up the sun. Yeah. All you need is a little Jimmy Buffett music and the smell of tanning oil.
Margaritaville.
Looks just like the beach over in Panama City Beach. Now we're getting ready to enter into this second channel. This is what we call the back jungle. And you'll see why when we come around the corner up here, the canopy of the tree.
hang on.
Is there a manatee over
There's a
there?
manatee. Look, everybody look right
All
there.
right, I'm going to stop the boat.
Yeah, there he is. I just got him. Just barely got him on film there.
Hang on,
You
don't
wanna
stand
come to
up,
the- you wanna
guys.
come
Let
to
him
the back
move a
of the
little
boat here?
bit.
It's coming right to the back of the boat, but just kind of, I'm going to sit here for a second. This is the first manatee I've seen all day long.
Yeah, he swam right
Right
behind
behind the engine here, about 10 feet behind the boat. Oh, it's coming. Oh, look at it. He's coming over here to see us.
Come on.
Come on, I'll send it. Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up. It's coming up. There's our buddy.
So if you'd like,
Come on, come on up and get a breath. They come up about every 3 to 5 minutes for a breath of air.
go ahead and go to the back of the boat. You guys are fine.
I got the boat stopped. You can come back here if you want.
Yeah, if we can ask those of you in the back to sit down once you've got a look
Yeah,
so everybody else can see, we really
Everybody
appreciate
rotate
it.
around there. Is it
We are running low on manatees today.
Here it is. There it goes.
I'll go back there.
Shot.
It's getting a little crowded right
Oh,
now.
I'm so excited.
Good luck.
I hate coming out here and getting stung when I know there's manatees in the river.
Did you get a picture?
Yeah, they're smaller than the females.
Down in there somewhere.
Right there.
Oh, it's right there.
You see it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's got the shadow of it there, yeah.
She's got to eat about 100 to 150 pounds of rafts a day.
Does she really?
They're constantly swimming up and down the river looking like
So
rafts.
we call them sea cows, I guess.
That's exciting. That's one of our manatees with you.
Okay.
Typically when it warms up like this, we don't typically...
Yeah, it's just barely, but I saw him, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, they must have got sick of me.
I did start.
Well, maybe we'll see another one when we get to the top of the river.
Okay, let me back in my slot here.
We actually had
I'm glad you got to see it.
we had a cold stretch around the holidays. And when it gets really cold...
I actually saw him better when he just came by here. I think I got just like 2 seconds on him there, but
We had a
anyway.
new record this year. We had 76 manatees up there by this.
81.
Oh, what?
81.
So isn't the best time of year to see manatees?
Broke our record last year by about 25.
Wow.
And you can imagine they like to hang out on this channel, so you gotta maneuver the boat around and give them the
Yeah,
right
we had
away.
81 manatees.
Here comes the sun.
Once that weather turned after that cold snap, they all hurried back out.
So now when you
Nice
look
when the sun
out
comes
front
out.
of the boat, you can see why we call this the back jungle. It's gonna get more and more jungle-like, but we also call this the movie channel. This is the part of the Wakulla River where all the Hollywood movies were made back in the 1940s and 50s. Back in the 30s, when Ed Ball bought this property, he built a lodge up there by the spring. And then they invited a bunch of Hollywood directors and producers to come check it out if they needed a jungle backdrop to shoot a movie. So they came here in the early 40s, they
Yeah, look at
checked
that
it out.
through there. Looks neat.
They brought them on a boat, they showed them this piece of the river right in front of us. And they fell in love with what they saw. So they came back in the mid-40s, brought Johnny Weissmuller and Marino Sullivan and their cast and crew. And this is where they ended up filming the first 2 of the series of Tarzan movies in the mid-1940s. They did Tarzan's Secret Treasure and Tarzan's New York Adventure were both filmed right in this part of the river. And the way they ended up doing it, they put temporary platforms up in these trees on both sides of the
So I
channel
can swing
here.
across, yeah.
And they ran ropes from side to side so the film crew could come out.
Just hanging out in the
We got
algae.
One of our little resident gators hanging out there in the weeds.
But Colin likes to say if you can't see him, he's
So
doing
the
his
film
job.
crews came out here and they were able to film all the action footage of Tarzan swinging from tree to tree. It saved the movie companies a lot of money because they didn't have to drag everybody over to Africa or down to South America looking for a jungle setting.
We'll make a big
They
set.
could do it right here in North Florida.
We had elephants back here.
Really?
They said Johnny Weissmuller was quite the comedian. Rumor has it when in the
Does
morning
look like
when
a
he'd wake up at the lodge
jungle
here,
there.
he'd throw open the windows of his guest room and he'd lean out and belt out his trademark Tarzan yell. And that was his way of letting the chef down in the kitchen know he was coming down for breakfast.
That's funny.
But those movies did so well that other people in Hollywood wanted to find out where they were filmed because they wanted to come here and do their movies here. So right in this S-turn that we're driving through, in the mid-1950s, one of the most iconic horror movies of the 1950s.
The
was
Creature.
shot. Anybody want to guess which one it was?
The Creature.
Right, this is where they filmed the original Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, we'll have to rewatch that.
And
Be
it's
kind
so
of fun.
shallow, I can see why they could do that.
Oh,
They actually
yeah.
did 3 Creature movies. The first one and the third one were done here at Wakulla Springs. The second one, Creature's Revenge, that was actually done down at Silver Springs, a little bit farther south in Florida. We think the Creature likes Wakulla Springs better because we still see him hanging out here sometimes in the summertime. When it's really warm, we'll see him laying on a log, soaking up the
Big
sun,
black bears
enjoying his
in there.
retirement. Creature's about 80 years old now. He's not much of a threat to humans anymore. But after they were done shooting the movies here, the Creature was pretty much unemployed, and Ed Ball felt bad for him. He gave him a job as a boat captain, and
Oh,
he
really?
did okay for a while, but then he started eating the passengers, and so we had to cut him loose.
Is that where the 80% rule came
Yeah.
from?
We got to bring 80% of our
We only got to bring 80% of you back.
You gotta feed the gator somehow.
And apparently the captains. Yeah.
I got a beautiful bird coming up here on the left-hand side, sitting on that tree right about eye level.
There's 2 of them. There's a juvenile in the tree as well.
Okay. It's called a yellow crown. It's called a yellow crown night heron. See it there? It's right about eye level on the left-hand side, sitting on that tree.
He's just posing for
And
us
they
there.
typically come out in the evening around sunset. We don't see them out here too much during the daytime. It's actually probably just napping right now.
There he is,
It's a
right
beautiful
through
little
there.
gray heron with a black and white face and a little yellow mohawk of feathers right down the middle of his head.
And then the juveniles on the branch
There's a
right
juvenile
behind
there,
it.
too. Yeah, the juveniles are pretty much all brown and tawny.
That's a juvenile. You can
Oh,
tell
okay.
because he doesn't have the crown yet. So his head will
Really
change
rare
colors.
one.
He's
Oh, I
starting
was
to
gonna
change
say,
colors.
it's a
in his
one-legged one, but he
feathers.
put his leg. Yeah, he was napping.
Yeah.
But yeah, his feathers.
Now, the juveniles take about a year for them to get their adult plumage. And they're not a migratory bird. They live here year-round. We've actually, our population is really starting to grow here at the park. But they are one of the prettiest birds we have out
I
here on
love
the
them. They
river.
look really grumpy when they're not doing much.
Back in the 1950s, when they shot the Creature movies here, they didn't have technology back then like we do now, and so they actually made the Creature costume out of foam rubber. The first day they started shooting out here on the river, they put the actor in the costume and found out he floated on the surface like a fishing pole.
Couldn't dive.
And you have to strap about 80 pounds of lead weight to him to get him under the water for the underwater footage. And
Wow.
thankfully now with computer-generated effects and things like that, they don't have to worry about things like that anymore. Are they there?
Yeah.
I'm going to go really slow here. We got something coming up on the right-hand side here that we're not supposed to have.
So
We have a female gator up here.
yeah, what you guys are gonna want to look for is yellow
And she,
lines. They're really tiny yellow lines, but right past.
We're gonna
Oh,
go real
she's
slow.
right there,
See
but the
some of
babies
these
are gonna
baby
be right
gators.
behind this.
These
So right
babies
where
were
I'm
actually born around Thanksgiving,
there.
which is
Little
way out
yellow
of their
lines on
cycle.
that
They're
rock
normally
right there.
born in the early spring. So there's
Oh, yeah, I
moms
see 'em there.
right
You see 'em?
there.
Look at that rock, little yellow
Little
lines
teeny
back
ones, yeah.
here. They're tucked kind of back away from mom right now, but under that tree, you see all those little yellow lines kind of on the water level. That's babies. They're all about maybe this big. They're
Yep,
really
they're about,
tiny.
yeah, probably 10, 11 inches.
Yeah.
See if we can see them.
Yeah.
They're little. They look like little.
They're back-
snakes with-
yeah, they're
they got
back
black.
this
They
way
have
a
black and orange stripes on their tail.
Yeah, over there.
They're really hard to see.
Little yellow lines up along that rock. See, they're kind of squirming around, little yellow lined worms. Yep, that's Mama right there. She was over by them earlier, which made it a lot easier to point them
And that
out.
hole in the bank is where the nest was.
Yep.
And we were out here one day with a bunch of volunteers doing a water survey in our little pontoon boat. And all of a sudden we saw like 50 of these little 6-inch in things around Thanksgiving. So her biological clock is definitely way off what it killed her because they're supposed to have their babies in March, April, and May.
Yeah, she moved about 10 feet away from them to make it harder for us to point them out. Thank you, Mom.
Through winter, which is kind of hard to do when they're that tiny. Especially when they have to buy their own food, exactly.
They don't quite look like
When it's cold
alligators
like
yet.
that, even little baby gators, their metabolism is so low. They're never really that motivated to get in the water and find things to eat, but they've managed to stay around. And y'all must have ate your Lucky Charms today because we've seen a manatee and the baby gator. All we needed now is to find a creature laying on a log somewhere. It's kind of cold for him. He won't be around till probably spring. For most of the boat tour, we've been running in about 5 to 8 feet of water, and you've been able to see the most of the bottom of the river. Now we're coming into this top part of the river.
Oh, the cave is real deep.
And you're going to watch the bottom of the river. It's just going to disappear underneath it. It's going to drop down to about 60 feet on this side. And then when I swing over by the dive tower, it's going to drop down to 125 feet deep. And that's where the actual cave opening is located, directly underneath that dive tower. So the cave itself is pretty good size. It's about as wide as a 4-lane highway. It stands about 6 stories tall. And that's the size that it needs to be to let all this water out of the ground. But if you look to the left over there, you can kind of see the boil where the water is pushing to the surface here. So that's what a 500,000 gallons a minute looks like. It's pushing up from the bottom. So the water comes up, it kind of swirls around here in the spring bowl, and then it heads 9 miles straight south and dumps into the Gulf.
That's how the manatees get here.
That's how they get here.
Many, many years ago, years before I even started working here, we used to have a fleet of 4 glass-bottom boats that we would bring out here into the spring. And as recently as about 9 years ago, we were able to run them on a fairly regularly scheduled tours. But you could come out here and the water was so crystal clear that you could stop over top of the 125-foot spring and people used to drop pennies and watch them sink to the very bottom of the spring.
Wow.
And it was actually so clear that people would get motion sickness because you couldn't tell where the water ended and the air began. People felt like they were floating in midair on those glass-bottom boats. And unfortunately, over the years, which is all the development we've got in North Florida and things, this is such a huge aquifer that things like lawn fertilizer and malfunctioning septic fields and things kind of soak into the aquifer and it changes the color of
Algae,
the water.
yeah.
It's gotten quite a bit darker. We do have periods where it gets to be about 50, 60 feet of clarity, but that's pretty rare. But luckily the quality is good enough. It still maintains all the good wildlife that we have out here on the river. Get a beautiful view of the lodge from out here on the river. The lodge was built back in 1937 by Ed Ball when he bought this as a property owner. And believe it or not, he actually built that as a private home in the mid-30s.
Wow.
It's got 27 bedrooms. It's got a full-service restaurant, full-service ice cream parlor.
Wow.
And he kept it private for about 20 years until in the 50s, people started bugging him to want to stay here as paying guests. He finally opened it up as a lodge back in the mid-50s. Way back when television was first invented, Ed Ball decided he didn't want any televisions in any of his guest bedrooms at the lodge. So we took this property over in 1986 as a state park, and the Park Service decided that they were going to honor his wishes. So to this day, we still have no televisions in any of the
Just
guest
like,
rooms.
That's just
Wow.
like Lake Knob.
That's how you look out your window,
That's
Yeah.
right.
right? What do you need a
Enjoy
TV
Mother
for?
Nature, kind of
Have to.
regroup a little bit. So we left the lodge just the way it was back in the 30s.
Some mullets swimming next to the boat.
Except the mattresses. We have changed the mattresses.
Yeah, that's a
Or
good
at
idea.
least flipped them over once.
Yeah.
Right.
There's our beautiful great blue heron. That great blue heron on the left over
Really
there
pretty.
has decided to make that little tree. It's the last 2 weeks or so.
His hangout.
He hangs out there every day.
Nice.
But you get that, you get that blackbird is one of our double-crested cormorants, and you still got some white ibis over there. There's definitely no shortage of bird life out here. On
Yeah,
the
no
river.
kidding. Yeah, they're everywhere. Must be a little fish or something to eat in there. I don't know what they're eating. I don't see any fish
Looks
in
like
there.
a theater, but I don't think so.
Well, folks, as we get ready to come into the dock, I want to thank everybody for coming
Isn't
out
it-
this
it looks like a
afternoon,
rubble.
spending time with us, and letting us share the wildlife and a lot of the history of the park here and the river. And it really is an honor to bring people out on this river and be able to share all the great things that we have out here.
During the warmer weather we had.
It's one of the best parts of our job here as park ranger.
Post up on that island right across from the
With me
swim
being a
area.
volunteer, they were short on
And just,
boat drivers.
I think
today.
he's got a good
They
sense of
would be
humor.
on garbage duty. So-
He's got a good sense of humor. He likes to lay out there and say, I can swim over there anytime I want.
It gets me
People,
out
what are you
of
gonna do?
doing other stuff out there in the river and get to come out here and share the river out here with the boat.
Yeah, it keeps him honest. Yeah, exactly.
But if you get back in the area, please come back and visit us again. We do change the wildlife
Maybe
out
that's what
daily,
we'll
so
start
you never
saying.
know what
Let's
you're going to
behave.
see. But we appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future. And you got plenty of time to enjoy the rest of the park. So
I'll do it again, especially if
enjoy
there's
the
more
rest of your
manatees
day, and
sometimes.
yes,
come back and
down
see
here.
us again. We appreciate it.
Oh, at least we got one anyway.
We got one, I just enjoyed all the birds and the quietness.
Yeah, watch
Oh,
your
very,
elbows.
very relaxing, yeah.
Very
Just a quick
relaxing.
reminder as I'm coming into the boat slip here, make sure you watch your fingers and your elbows. I might rub against one of these pilings coming in here. We don't want anybody's boat tour to end with a pinched finger.
Whatever.
Wakulla Springs.
And like Katrina said earlier, we're only responsible to get 80% of you back to the dock here. We did a pretty good job. We got 100% of you back to the dock.
Oh,
It's been a good boat tour this afternoon.
No.
All right.
well, what do you think, my dear?
I think it was a very good try, come
Yeah, it
again.
was very good. Yeah, very relaxing. Just kind of.
Funny.
It was. Yeah,
He was really
funny.
funny.
Funny guy. Yeah. That must have been a good joke.
Folks, we got you all tied up in the boat. Good to go. Appreciate you coming
Yeah, I'll
out
follow you
today.
out with the camera.
Have a great day. Come back and see us again.
Go ahead.
Little ramp there.
That would be me.
Appreciate you all coming out today. You know, like I said, I love it when the wildlife cooperates. Makes my job so easy.
Thank you, Captain.
All right, have a great day.
Yeah, you
Come
too,
back and
thanks.
see us again.
Will do.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
And don't tell them.
Yeah, yeah, at the end, exactly.
Don't tell anybody.
Thank you. I like the humor.
Yeah, right. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, that mansion. There's something else. That's a.
Did you
Pri-
film the whole trip?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a private residence. Imagine living there just by one family. Oh man.
Well, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there are people that go that far.
Yeah. You'll have a YouTube channel, so I just kind of filmed the whole thing. I'll edit it tonight. Put it up later.
And you can post it then?
Oh yeah, it'll be up tomorrow morning probably.
Okay.
Whiskey Golf 7 Delta if you want to see it.
What's it called?